Welcome back to Red vs. Blue episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 39, The Best Laid Plans. Back at Blood Gulch, Tucker lays just barely conscious and alive on the grass, moaning in pain loudly with Donut standing over top of him, really encouraging him to wake up, calling him Mr. Blue Guy. Tucker, fed up with the pain, pleads Donut to just let him die, leading Donut to explain that he can't die, as that would leave him bored and alone with Tex and Sheila, who he called the chicks, who he claimed just wanted to talk about chick stuff, unsarcastically clarifying that it wasn't the fun chick stuff such as ribbons and unicorns, revealing Donut's true feminine side even more. Speaking of Tex and Sheila, this boring chick stuff they were discussing actually involved their serious struggles with guys staring at them, with Tex stating that although she didn't have treads, she agreed that she would constantly find guys staring at places they shouldn't on her body. After hearing about this, Donut claimed his point was proven, since they were talking about oppression and the work environment, which he thought were obviously boring. Tucker, ignoring Donut, simply murmurs that he needed Doc, with Donut revealing to him that Doc wasn't available as he had been possessed by O'Malley, calling him the evil guy, and escaped, reminding Tucker that O'Malley was the one who shot him, questioning how he couldn't remember. Tucker clarified he did remember, but simply wanted Doc to shoot him again, insinuating he just wanted to be put out of his misery instead of healed. Donut accuses him of having a case of the poor me's, stating that if Tucker was that injured that he needed to be put down, he would have died by now, somewhat annoyedly telling Tucker he would just need to live through the pain. Tucker, obviously not wanting to, suggests an alternative to Doc, as Sarge makes him a new body. In response, Donut makes a fourth wall-breaking joke about how they can't do that because they've overused the robot body joke, before stating the real reason was because Sarge was also gone, recapping what had just happened to Tucker regarding Sarge and the others leaving to chase Doc, naively ensuring Tucker that they would be back any minute, citing his reasoning as them already being gone a long time and Simmons having a foolproof plan to get to O'Malley, meaning the teleporter. What Donut didn't realize, though, was that the plan was not foolproof. Meanwhile, alone in the room with all the teleporters, Simmons called out hello repeatedly, questioning if anyone else was there, annoyingly to no response. Simmons sarcastically states how great this is, finally coming to the conclusion that everyone got separated in the teleporter. He then attempts to contact Sarge on the radio, revealing his identity as Simmons 2.0 and clarifying if Sarge could hear him as he explained the situation of what he only called Sarge's plan, not blaming himself to go after Doc and O'Malley failing miserably, and making him end up in a nexus of teleporters that he assumed could potentially take him anywhere in the universe, but immediately after claims half-jokingly that the place could just be a janitor's closet, stating he didn't fucking know. After still getting no response, Simmons could only just continue yelling for Sarge on the radio. Meanwhile, at that lake area, Sarge, who now had his more crazy accent voice, had gotten on his radio and began shouting repeatedly, asking if anyone could hear him or if he could read them, before eventually giving up, stating a quiet no in disappointment, and coming to the same realization as Simmons that they had all been separated, and no one else was with them. Caboose simply stated in response that his toes were getting pruny as he was standing in the water. Sarge simply awkwardly replies with a slow, okay, and quickly changes the subject to O'Malley, suggesting they go find him. Caboose mistakenly states that he knows where O'Malley is, stupidly explaining that since O'Malley was in his head for a bit, he may have left a mailing address before he left, and he may have done so since they were like close roommates. Sarge responds by sarcastically continuing the roommate analogy, stating O'Malley must have taken some furniture, the carpet, and the drapes before leaving Caboose's head, referring to his stupidity, warning that Caboose likely wouldn't get the furniture deposit back, hoping Caboose would get the hint. Sarge and Caboose then run up from the lake, eventually reaching a more rocky and grassy area, where they spot a dead blue soldier, who Caboose calls attention to first, mistaking him as a sleeping person. When Sarge notices him, he shouts, "Oh, Macaron," in panic, rushing over to check on the body, confirming he was in fact dead, not sleeping. Caboose stupidly responds with relief, stating his reason as he thought that the blue was actually him, since he is also blue and likes this, clarifying that he at least knew that if the blue guy was dead, then it couldn't be him, only stating that that would be silly. Sarge, essentially ignoring Caboose, states his assumption that the blue was definitely killed by O'Malley, simply calling him their enemy, whining at the fact that he was once again torn between two feelings. One of happiness that there was one less blue in the universe, and one of anger that Doc technically had a bigger body count than her now, stating that simply wouldn't do. Sarge unleashes both of these feelings by wishing the dead blue rest in peace, while also calling him a scumbag, as Caboose walks ahead, spotting more dead reds and blues, still calling them sleeping people, whispering to get Sarge's attention as he comes up behind him, but seizing when he claims it must be nap time, randomly questioning why these people were sleeping now, when nap time comes before pants time, not after, referring to their armor and accusing them of making up times. Whatever floats his boat, I guess. Sarge, actually focusing on the various dead bodies, questions what could have happened to them, stating, "What the Samuel Helsinki happened here?" referring to the massacre of the same name relating to the evangelical church, assuming that there must have been a huge battle. Sarge then called out to the crowd of dead bodies, clarifying if there were any okay survivors, adding that red survivors were preferred, before assuring that not to discourage any blue survivors from speaking up, very obviously suspiciously confirming that he wouldn't step on their necks or anything of the sort, despite the fact that he obviously would. Caboose stupidly questions if he should answer, with Sarge responding by simply shushing him as he hears a trumpet, clarifying if Caboose would hear it as well, to which Caboose only responds by describing water as wet and sloshy, claiming that was what the sound was and all he heard. Sarge bitterly clarified he was talking about the trumpet sound as it grew louder, but Caboose just ignored him, unnecessarily stating he had to go to the bathroom, and even more unnecessarily adding that it was odd, since he just went when they were standing in the lake. Sarge, completely focused on the trumpet at this point, eventually recognized the tune as one he knew, Reveille, questioning why someone would be playing it out in this area. Just then, Sarge called out, "Sweet Ghibli Giblets," in panic as all the seemingly dead reds and blues rose up, instantly cheering over each other as if they never died. Caboose worriedly stated running time, but before he and Sarge could run, the gang of reds and blues run around past them, each team retreating into their own base, cheering hut, 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 and hway, ho, 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 hway, respectively. Sarge questions what the hell just happened in disbelief, as the soldiers were supposed to be dead, but when Caboose was about to stupidly respond to something about sleeping people, Sarge quickly cut him off, stating the question was rhetorical, running over to one of the bases as the soldiers' cheering continued to be heard, coming from the top level. Sarge ordered Caboose to get over to him and give him a boost, leading Caboose to misunderstand, simply stating Sarge was a good person, and people said nice things about him. Sarge then bitterly corrects him that he meant a physical boost, not a morale one, calling him a moron, and informing him the boost was needed so Sarge could get up to the base's top level and see it through the window. Caboose, not taking in the information aside from the word window, doubted that Sarge could get up there, stating how high it was, and that Sarge wasn't tall enough. Sarge annoyedly clarified that's why he wanted him to help him look through it, with Caboose still misunderstanding, explaining he wouldn't be tall enough either, and that his head was round while the window was square. Sarge, knowing it was hopeless to get Caboose to understand, decides to be the one to lift him up, simply instructing Caboose to come up to him as he lifts him up. Caboose murmuring a nervous whoa the higher he gets. Caboose can now see in the window, so Sarge asks him what he can see. Caboose being Caboose still isn't very helpful, vaguely whispering that he sees a room. Sarge further questions what's in the room, with Caboose terribly clarifying that there's walls and ceilings. At least correcting himself to only one ceiling. Sarge, wanting actual useful info, questioned what the source of all the racket and noise was, referring to the chanting of "Kill the Reds" that the Blues in this base were repeating. Even Caboose was smart enough to realize Sarge was on the red team, simply replying that Sarge wouldn't like the source, as to not trigger him. Sarge then put Caboose down, warning that he had a very bad feeling about this whole situation, but getting cut off by the sound of Reveille resuming and both the red and blue soldiers coming out of their bases and engaging in all-out combat, shouting and yelling unintelligibly at each other with all variations of guns. Caboose and Sarge, almost being hit by numerous bullets ricocheting off the walls beside them, decide to move to higher ground at Sarge's suggestion, as he instructs him to follow him. As they run, they can make out some words such as, "I love to reload," "Ow, the back of my head," in reference to episode 12, and "Tell my girlfriend I love her," and "She's my girlfriend now, bitch," resembling what it's like to play in a Halo lobby in 2003, with kids throwing bad insults and swears at each other. Caboose and Sarge somehow manage to reach a ladder through the chaos, with Sarge encouraging Caboose to climb until they eventually reach a rocky cliff, where they stand and observe the massacre from above, with Caboose admitting to Sarge he was scared of these soldiers, who he called their new friends, likely being sarcastic. Sarge then questions what's happening, stating, "Hot sunny Bono," as the trumpet plays and a red soldier comes out of the blue base with their blue flag, demanding that everyone stop fighting. The sight of the flag makes everyone somehow oblige as they cease fire and stare at it in awe, with one of the Reds salivating that it's more beautiful than he ever imagined. But then the red soldier, selfishly wanting glory, begs everyone to look at him, claiming he's seen the top of the mountain and should be worshipped as though he were a god for retrieving the blue flag. Instead of being honored for retrieving the blue flag, though, 3 blues just walk up to him and kill him instantly, as the red soldier claims he has no regrets as he got to live as few men dare to even dream, referring to retrieving the flag. That's how a lot of the other red and blue teams were out there, known as zealots, just resembling cursed Halo players and shooting and respawning endlessly, retrieving each other's flag over and over. This is evident as the Blues reclaim their flag from the dead red, and the fighting resumed, along with the endless, almost unintelligible trash talk from both sides, including, "Headshot, you want some, I got some for you. Oh, you rocky whore," as someone gets blown up by a rocket. "The only good blue is a dead blue." A soldier also mentions how cold the water is, swearing on Christ. A red and blue fight each other from the opposite sides of a rock, a red saying, "Hey blue." A red and blue fight each other from opposite sides of a rock, the red saying, "Hey blue," saying "ho," as they both keep missing each other, but then a second red comes and kills the blue, angering the other red as his kill was stolen, only to get countered by the fact that the kill didn't have his name on it, but then the red that stole the kill gets his karma by getting killed by a camping blue, who he calls a camping bitch, leading the camper to rebuttal that camping is a legit strategy. By the end of the massacre, this camping blue and one other red are the only 2 soldiers left, and are each hiding behind a different rock. The red, after barely missing a shot, to the camper's relief and his annoyance, calls attention to the fact that it's only them 2, and insists they work as a team, and that he's coming out of cover, with the camper agreeing he will as well. They both come out and look at each other briefly, as the camper questions the red on how they could work as a team. The red responds by coldly murdering the camper, sarcastically revealing the teamwork as him shooting and the camper dying, calling good game while simultaneously calling him a fucking noob. The red then collapses saying bleh, dying for no explainable reason as fast as he came back alive before. Sarge, perhaps in more disbelief than ever before, admits how he had no idea what the hell just happened or what this place was or where O'Malley was located, choosing to simply blame Griff for coming up with a stupid plan of chasing O'Malley, calling him stupid multiple times, just as Simmons passed the blame onto him. He knew Griff wasn't involved in this at all, but blaming him was all that could console him after the insanity battle that was just witnessed. Caboose, also another shock and trauma, on the other hand questions where Church is, claiming Church telling him what to think is the only way he could handle the situation, as he couldn't possibly form an opinion without Church, who he says could handle this and anything. Meanwhile, speaking of Church, he and Griff had been kidnapped inside a bar jailhouse by the man who ambushed them, who was a member of another red team named Max Game. Church called out to him, calling him an asshole, screaming at the top of his lungs his demand to let him out of his jail cell, threatening this would be his last warning. Griff, more annoyed by Church's yelling, also pleads for the man to let Church out, stating he was driving him nuts, leading Church to bitterly tell Griff to shut up, claiming no one asked him. Continuing the running joke of the Reds and Blues shifting the blame of the plan, Griff states how he should have never went along with the team-up plan, and none of this would have happened, this time blaming Donut for no reason. Meanwhile, the Reds and Blues at the lake area had respawned again, with both teams reconvening at their bases. The Blues were talking about how this next game would be their game, chanting "Kill the red, get the fucking flag, and we must protect this house, this is our house," with the Blue mentioning how cool being a part of a team was. The Blues then laughed, realizing the chanting may have been too over the top, all stating they were now ready for battle, aside from one, who needed to get a pen, presumably to write down strategies, showing once again how most Reds and Blues just treated the war as a game, especially these guys, since they somehow get revived by the sound of a trumpet playing.